We sold half our stuff and we packed up half our stuff. And part of what I sold and packed up were my beliefs. So I just kind of said, well, why don't I just leave all of my previous faith, still keep my thoughts on God, still be interested in the life of Jesus, but maybe I'll put all that stuff just on hold and just see what happens. See what happens to my faith when I'm outside of the religious South, and see kind of where I go from there. One of the things I wanted to do is just appreciate cultures for wherever they were at, and some places that didn't succeed. You know, there were places that I just didn't appreciate the culture for where it was. But there were other places that I felt, you know, were very sacred spaces that had nothing to do with Christianity. Some of them that had nothing to do with spirituality. There were just places that we found along the way that were sacred spaces for us. And there were cultural things and spiritual things for other faiths that were sacred to me. There were some experiences when I was learning about the Maori tribes in New Zealand that my wife Leslie and I both found fascinating. The way that Christianity grafted onto their religion. Basically what they did was took their own Polynesian religion, and then people tried to kind of convert them to Christianity. So they just took what they liked and they combined the two. So if there was something that, you know, a scripture that may say something like, where Jesus would say, "In my Father's house there are many rooms. If it were not so, I would have told you." They take that and say, yeah, in our version of what we call the heavens, there are actually 300 or 400 heavens or whatever it is. I forget now, but this is attesting to what we've already believed. And they've grafted, I mean, they just kind of took stuff that they liked and brought it into their own paradigm and, you know, ran with it. That was inspiring to me. I thought, that's great. That kind of also, when I got back, led into more skepticism, because that's not really the stance that I've ever had in my life of, well, let me see what is good and what is right from other faiths and let me bring that in. But that's kind of an experience that we had almost everywhere we travel. We saw how people have kind of grafted what was important for them or what was life-giving for them of Christianity into their own culture. I think the biggest benefit was just getting away. And not getting away from something that's like bad over here to get out of it and get away from it, but more just to have some time of personal growth and spiritual growth that was outside of, you know, that was away from family and friends. And that was, I mean, that was a time that my wife and I, that was all we had. Leslie and I, it was just us. It just gave us space. I mean, we always talk about needing space. Physically, I think traveling and being outside of the country let us kind of figure out a little bit more about ourselves. And a lot of that stuff wasn't spiritual. A lot of that stuff was just figuring out like things that we liked, or the ways that we operated, or how we were going to respond to tough situations, or what to do in the middle of the night in Vietnam when you can't find a place to sleep, you know. But a lot of that too was just, I had been concerned my whole life with deep spiritual questions, and then to be separated, almost when we left, I kind of was outside of all that, and I didn't really even think about those things. And then you realize, well, I'm not worrying about them here. Maybe some of these things aren't as important as I thought they were. Maybe that's not what I should spend all of my time with. Maybe I should find a different way to live, because it doesn't seem like the majority of the world spends their whole day thinking about these deep spiritual things, you know?